Good morning, Buffaloes fans, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy fans, to episode 3 of season 2 of the Buffaloes podcast here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca, presented by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, as well as goaltenders. As for this week, we were planning on having a lot more guests, but it did not work out that way. We're hoping to have plenty of players on for next week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast for episode 4. But in season 2, episode 3, this morning, yesterday, I had a chance to talk with two members from Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy and had a chance to talk to one of their players playing in his third year this year in Pilot Mountain, his second year with the U17s in Luke Adam. Later on, Gordy Tumbleson's going to be joining the show. We're going to be showing some different pictures throughout this episode in terms of different news and things that have been happening from around the academy. But yeah, really great short conversation with Luke about just what the journey's been like, his development, this year's group, the thoughts about the start to the season, talking a bit about last season, and a bit more here on episode 3, season 2 of the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast, the Buffaloes podcast, here on gshow.ca, on G-Show Productions on YouTube. And it's Anthony Florentino, head coach of the U8. Gordy Tummelson, of course, joining as a weekly segment here on the Buffaloes podcast. Gordy, it was quite the eventful weekend for a lot of the teams in the academy. All teams were in action, but let's start off with the team that traveled to Portage La Prairie, came out with 2 wins, close games all around, a tie in there, and their only loss being 1-0 to the Yellowhead Chiefs, the female U18 prep Buffaloes. Their weekend pretty successful outside of the win column as well, getting better and better here early on.
Yeah, good to see you, Graham. And yep, there were 13 games on the weekend. This old goalie person was bleary-eyed by the time it was all over. I watch all of those games for the most part, and I could take notes. And I can tell you, my writing hand was hurting, and my eyes were bleary. But they were, yeah, it was a fun weekend for our kids. For the most part, it was very successful, and looking forward to another busy weekend.
We're going to have to cut Cordy off there for just a moment. That's a little sneak peek of what's coming on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast from him later on. But yeah, we got the Luke Adam interview queued up now. Let's get into that to start off this edition of the Buffaloes podcast on episode 3 for season 2. Third year forward in the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, joining the show now. Second year now with the U17 program. And Luke Adam, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining. What's life been like in Pilot Mountain here around this time around in year 3?
Good, good. Just kind of like obviously a bit used to it now, and I just think of it as another year and see what we can do.
Yeah, and of course you're from Paul, Manitoba originally. It's been 3 years since you've been in Pilot Mountain now. You played 1 year with the U15s, like mentioned. It'll be your second year. The U17s, I guess we'll get right into it in terms of this question. How's the development been, throughout the years progressing to this point?
Good, good. Like especially like just like the whole organization and stuff. Like it's improved so much since I've been here. Like I remember the first year we like started off working out in a little room upstairs at the rink, and then we got moved over to the dorms here. So it's really nice.
Yeah, and you were a part of, one of the first U15 teams in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy history, of course, getting to move up the ranks within the academy. What was that first year like going back to that U15 season, getting to put on a Buffaloes jersey for the first time and face this type of competition for the first time?
Yeah, I don't know. I felt it was pretty big, like obviously like big experience and stuff, and then like I don't know, it was like kind of took a bit in getting used to because I always used to be at home, right?
Right.
just like have my local team. But like moving here, obviously as a 14-year-old, it was kind of challenging, but I think I adapted to it pretty well. And then just throughout the years, it's been just another year. So it's been great.
What's that been like, going back home at this point now, when you have, even dating back to last year, have you seen, I guess, that maturity within yourself really develop?
Yeah, for sure. When I go back home, it's kind of like I feel a little bit different because it's kind of like Pilot Mountain's more my home now. So I just kind of look at Pilot Mountain like where I live and like just where I go to school and stuff. So I kind of focus on that more of like where my main home is.
Right, a second home has become a main home. That's for
Yeah,
sure for
exactly.
yourself down in small town Pilot Mound. What's it been like having the support though from the folks? I'm sure it's been huge throughout these 3 seasons so far.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're great. They just been keep pushing me and telling me to do my best, and I think that's what I'm trying to do here in my third year and just be the best player I can and just bring everything I can to the team.
Well, talking about last year, I mean, you were a part of that U17 team that ended up making it all the way to the semis in the second tier of the competitive pool in the U17 prep playoffs in Penticton, BC. Incredible team last season, one of the best seasons this U17 team has had in quite some time. What was that like being a part of that group last season that had such a huge run?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like playing with Carson Carls, Benson Hurst. Like it's really good experience, and they're real big role models. And just like going to the playoffs and stuff, it was awesome, and it was a good experience. And I just hope we can kind of move that on to this year and see what we could do.
Yeah, and of course, those guys aren't with you boys this season, but in terms of just being around players of that level and players like that, I'm sure, I'm not sure if you'd agree with this, but I'm sure you would as well as the rest of the team. But how infectious that can be, how huge of an impact was it having those two on the team from not only a winning game standpoint, but being able to help grow the rest of the team, I guess, with their impact.
Yeah, for sure. They're obviously real important guys to the team, and I think that they showed what they can do and how we can rely on them. And but again, like it just having them guys is obviously a big role model and stuff, but then it also comes down to like the other guys too, right?
Yeah.
Like your last lines, like it takes everybody to make a team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And collectively last season, a very hardworking U17 Prep Buffaloes team. And for yourself, Luke, I mean, getting to play a second season against older competition, how would you say that yourself you developed as a player in year two specifically last season?
Yeah, I think well, obviously starting from my U15 year, I think that just like coming back in the past 2 years, just I've been getting more comfortable and being able to like be more comfortable with the puck and just like knowing when to pass, where to pass at the right times, and I just feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident out there.
You know, for yourself this season going into your third year with the academy, is there any, I guess, goals personally you've been setting for yourself in terms of what you want to accomplish personally this year?
Um, Not really. I just want to just like have a good season, see what I can do, see like just see like what our team can do, and I don't have too much goals. I just want to try and make the season the best day I have so far.
No, yeah, for sure. And just taking a look at your stats, I mean, last season, playing the most games you ever had with this Buffalo squad, I guess, playing 29 games the year before in CSSHL play, but obviously getting to play more games in terms of the playoffs. 5 points, 33 games last season. I feel like for yourself, I haven't gotten a chance to watch you play much, but you're probably more of that, hardworking player that does the little things right. Am I wrong about that? Who is Luke Adams as a hockey player?
No, no, you're totally right. Um, I think I've had two good development years, like past 2 years. You got that right. Like I just think I'm trying to do the little things right, block shots, get to the puck first, use your body, and I just trying to take that and just bring that all to my game and make it just one piece this year.
Yeah, and I think that's so valuable for a team to have a player like you that you can rely on to get those things done that maybe some players won't consistently throughout the season. Having that in your toolbox is huge for sure. And I guess starting off the season, there's been a win for this team. There's been some losses. What's the vibe been like, or the vibes been like around the room to start off the year within this U17 group?
Oh, it's pretty good. We obviously the first day, like we just all got brought together pretty close, and I think we just adapted to each other pretty well. And I think, like, yeah, like we could work on a lot of things, and we've made mistakes, but that's what every team gets at the start of the year, right? And I think the only way up is, or the only way now is up. So
Yeah, and this team has had a chance to play against Indigenous Sports Academy so far in a back-to-back. Lost that game on Friday against Rankaki Academy Winnipeg. How was this past weekend against Indigenous Sports Academy?
oh, it was good. I think we did pretty good. Well, the first game we had a 9-1 win, and then the second game we had a 5-2 win. So it wasn't bad. Like obviously, it's not all about winning, but
Yeah,
again, that was their first game together, and yeah, we did pretty good. I had 2 goals in 3 games, so it
right on.
wasn't bad.
Right on. Yeah, not bad at all. Some points in there, some big wins, and against a team that always seems to give this academy, no matter what level it is, an exciting game. How huge is that, I guess, so early on for this group to not only win against a team like this that has given competitive games in the past, but winning these games pretty handily at that.
Yeah, I think like obviously good to win and stuff, but like there's obviously going to be challenges throughout the year, right? Like
Yeah.
Rink's obviously a good team. We have Edge next, so I think we can just put like get ourselves to work and just keep plugging away. And I think that's all. That's one thing that Rick really focuses on too. Is as long as we just keep working and just keep doing what we can, and just working our hardest that we can get somewhere.
There's a lot of opportunity for different players to step up even more this season as there is at the start of any new season. Is that, I guess, one of the most exciting parts about this year coming in, knowing that there's new opportunity to try to improve on last year?
Yeah, for sure. Like a couple guys like Brody Whittick, Jack Perrier, like they're all guys that really stepped up so far these couple games that we've played, these little games. But I just feel like they know what they're doing, they know their game, and also like just for me too, like it's I got to step it up too because this is my third year here, and I got to like prove to myself what I can do. So
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the words. Instilled that veteran dominance is the words I was trying
yeah,
to think of. But going into Abbotsford, BC this weekend, coming up against Shawnigan Lake School, St. George's School, Star Hockey Academy. The preparation, the excitement leading up to these upcoming games, what's it going to be like?
yeah, for sure. Like tomorrow we leave 8 a.m. on the bus, so we'll have long 2 bus trips, but we just need to get there, focus up, and just do the little things right. Just play simple hockey, and I think we'll be pretty successful.
Well, yeah, and 3 games to, be able to keep improving as a team as the season gets going here in the CSSHL. Luke Adam joining this edition of the show, third year forward, second year forward for the U17s. Like I always say to all the guests that come on the show here, all the players, best of luck to you and the boys coming up this weekend in the season ahead. Luke, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Luke Adam joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. U17 prep forward, the only player joining this week's edition of the show. Gordy Tummelson, as you saw earlier, is in the house, I guess, for this episode. Technically, even though it's a pre-recorded interview, you're going to be seeing that full interview coming up momentarily here. But yeah, for the U17s, a 9-1 and 5-2 win in Saskatchewan against Indigenous Sports Academy, bouncing back from that 5-1 loss against Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg on Friday night. That's a quality program, always one that is seemingly had Pilot Mountain's numbers, so not really a surprise there, I guess, this past Friday night with that quality program in RHA. But yeah, it just seems like, and I'm going to mention this to Gordy too later on, as you'll hear coming up, but it seems like every time this U17 team lost last year, they more than likely bounced back, and they did just that in big fashion early on here in this season. In a year where, of course, we're going to have to find a few different ways to win, not having some game breakers on their team anymore. And of course, we always mention his name, Carson Carrolls and the Benson Hursts. But yeah, as for other news, though, someone that has been involved with the U17 team for many, many years and has announced his retirement officially. They honored him. It's Coach Ernie Sutherland. And for Ernie, he received, this plaque, some great memories for him, a great honor for him to be taking this in with Rick McConnell, Rod Collins, and believe that's Tamis Collins as well. Tammy Collins, I'm not too sure. But, great to see Rick Rod there honoring someone that's been a part of the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy family for a long time. Congratulations to yourself, Ernie Sutherland, on a great, healthy, and long retirement. And had a chance to get to see Ernie a few times down in Pilot Mountain in the past, and Ernie was always sharpening skates, always looking after the team that way, and really did care about the Buffaloes and that jersey and everything that had to do with what they were doing over there at Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. So yeah, wishing the best to a Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy legend and a Manitoba hockey legend in Ernie Sutherland. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Gordy Tummelson here on the Buffaloes podcast for Season 2, Episode 3. Don't go away. Won't want to miss this with me and Gordy coming up in our weekly segment. Gordy Tummelson, of course, joining his weekly segment here on the Buffaloes podcast. Gordy, it was quite the eventful weekend for a lot of the teams in the academy. All teams were in action, but let's start off with the team that traveled to Portage la Prairie, came out with 2 wins, close games all around, a tie in there, and their only loss being 1-0 to the Yellowhead Chiefs, the female U18 prep Buffaloes. Their weekend pretty successful outside of the win column as well, getting better and better here early on.
Yeah, good to see you, Graham. And yep, there were 13 games on the weekend. This old goalie person was bleary-eyed by the time it was all over. I watch all of those games for the most part, and I could take notes. And I can tell you, my writing hand was hurting, and my eyes were bleary. But they were. Yeah, it was a fun weekend for our kids. For the most part, it was very successful, and looking forward to another busy weekend here. But the girls did really well on the weekend. Yeah, I think they're a little bit tired from the first 3 games in 2 days. So the extra game in the last day is always a tough one, and came up 1 goal short. We certainly gave it a try, but weren't able to get one on the other team. So good on the other goalie and the other team's defense, but yeah, we're full marks for a good weekend on our girls program.
Yeah, and for that Yellowhead Chiefs team, very well coached team, no matter what time of the year of the season it is. But yeah, beating some really good teams on paper in the Brandon Wheat Kings, the Westman Wildcats, that franchise there has been to 3 straight finals. So it's yeah, really exciting to see how this U18 female prep group is improving and getting off to their best season in quite some time, Gordy. Is that the consensus that maybe this on paper is looking like one of the best U18 female prep Buffaloes teams in a while?
Certainly in a while, no question about that. Yeah, the last couple 3 years have been kind of weak and not as good as we'd like it to be. This group seems to be better and getting better. Congratulations to the coaches, Ryan Carls and Kurt Fortney have done a really good job getting them up to par out that way. Colin Pfaffer, our in-house goalie coach in Pilot Mountain, has done a great job of getting our two goalies up, and they've been super all year so far. So we can get that kind of goaltending all the time, and as the goalies both said, the defense played much better as the weekend went on, and they're playing much better now. Yeah, we're going to be a more competitive team. That's what we hope we'd be, and so we're looking forward to better results all the way through the year.
Yeah, and of course, these were AAA teams, but very solid teams that they played against this weekend, and they'll be going to Penticton, British Columbia for this Friday to go against Okanagan Hockey Academy Black, and then playing on Saturday against Okanagan Hockey Academy, and then North Shore, the Warriors on Sunday. And Gordy, I feel like just one last point on the U18's female group, but having this type of coaching staff in place makes such a difference. Having this consistency there too.
Yeah, last year was a bit of a mess at the start of the year for the first couple of months. Got it straightened away, and the same two guys are running the program now that ran it towards the middle end of the season last year, and the girls are responding nicely. So, we expect this team to be better, and for a lot of good reasons. Better players, better coaches, more consistent coaching, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, we're looking forward to a better girls program this season for sure.
Well, we talked about busy weekends for the teams. Like you mentioned, 13 games were played in total. Four of those games belonging to the U15 male prep Buffaloes. Winning two of them, a tie in there, and a loss against an Eastman Selects AAA team. But this team, highlighted by Cole Landerville, of course, they've built some good talent throughout the years. How it look firsthand, first off this year, getting to see this team for the first time.
Well, it is their first games, and I was really surprised they were how good they actually played for the first, and particularly the first three games. I think they petered out a little bit in that fourth game. The third game was a comeback game where we were down 4-1 and ended up winning the hockey game 5-4. So good on our guys to do that. But I think they ran out of juice in the fourth game. But and Eastman's always got a good team too. So double whammy for us, and they sort of kicked us a little bit. But that's okay. I think we get a crack at them later on in the season. But in the meantime, yeah, three nice games for our guys to get involved and just get their feet wet for the season. Looking forward to seeing more of that from them. And there's no disappointment. I don't think, other than the being really tired and beat up a little bit on the in the fourth game. But yeah, other than that, great weekend for our kids.
Yeah, and looking at the stats, I mean, I talked about how Cole Landerville is highlighting this team just based off of how ridiculous the guy was last season, but he only had a goal. We're looking at guys like Maddox Ramage, who had 8 points over this past weekend. Guys like Felix Huberto having six, a point per game player, and Matea Greco as well. So, some good talent on display, those three impressing, but overall, looks like there's many players this season that can put the puck in the net to start things off.
Sure. As far as points go, yeah, Maddox is a big guy. I mean, he's about 6 foot tall. It looks like it to me anyway. And he goes out there. He's got a long reach. He knows how to handle himself. Uses his body quite well. On the puck when he's being checked. And he's got his head up. He's a really good hockey player. Yeah, everybody sort of contributed, as you said. I think Cole not getting the points wasn't as big a deal as his play, because he was better than that. He was better than the points, but he was the third. He was the third assist rather than the second assist. He made a lot of good plays, and of course, you got to pay attention to a good player like that. And so the other teams know that he's from Manitoba. All the kids know him, and so they're gonna check him a little bit harder. And I think that's what happened here. And so by them checking him harder, they left other guys open. So, good on Cole to sort of maybe give up some points, but help the team with some nice success during the weekend.
Yeah, and I think like points are nice. Of course, we always talk about points. I
Yeah,
always mention points, but at the end of the day, like it's the little things that matter too, right? And for Cole, I mean, this is the player that I feel like could have a pretty successful future in his amateur hockey career, and scouts could be looking at this player this season and liking the things they see in him, not just putting up the points, the other stuff like that. Drawing people in, making other players better on the team. That's what the great ones do. But for this squad, Gordy in net too. Gavin Hildebrand coming back this season. Yuki Kiddo, I'm not sure if I pronounced that name right, is he also got some playing time this past weekend, having 2 wins. But yeah, the goaltending situation is better than everyone. How good it is for this U15 team. How did it look this past weekend?
Yeah, we were good in goal. Even getting sort of thumped in the last game, it wasn't the goaltending was a problem. The other team was really good, and again, I think our guys were burnt out. So Gavin had a bit of a rough game in his second game. Got a nice tie in the first game. He's not in a hurry to do anything special. Just getting his feet wet. We kind of just going to move him along nicely. Yuki Kito from Japan. What a neat little guy, and boy, is he fast and quick and a great attitude and whatnot. So he absolutely was like a vacuum cleaner in his second game in the third period. He was incredible. I'm sure that game would have been a 3-goal win by the other guys had he not played. He was phenomenal, and we made sure he knew that. But at the end of the day, we're going to be very solid in goal here. We're not going to have to worry about that position. I think our defense has been stretched a little bit, and we still have a couple of openings on defense, and we're hoping to fill those 2 spots pretty soon. And with the top-notch guys that are available, so we're going to wait and see on that. But yeah, the goaltending in our U15 team is solid as a rock.
Good goaltending, good offense on display, and looking to, of course, continue to get better. They will be playing this Friday coming up, the C15 group in Winnipeg against Rink Hockey Academy before they're back in action on October 4th.
That'll be a test.
That's one. A
Yeah,
test for
that'll be
sure.
a
We'll
test.
be talking about that next episode. Gordy, we'll take a quick break here, and we'll be back to talk about the U18 male buffs as well as the U17s coming up on the Buffaloes podcast with Gordy Tummelson. Gordy Tummelson on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. Join me here to talk about all things Pilot Mountain. Their 4 teams in the Hockey Academy were all in action in total 13 games played. We talked about the U18 female team as well as the U15 male squad. Let's go into the U17 male team, Gordy. They start off with a 5-1 loss against the Brink Hockey Academy Winnipeg team on the Friday, and then they go into Saskatchewan and win 2 in a row against the Indigenous Sports Academy. For them, seems like the story remains the same. Lose a game and bounce back in really good fashion.
Yeah, I mean the Rink Academy's obviously got a very good team. They always have a top-notch group, and so tough game. 5-1 was probably pretty accurate. Our goalkeeping was pretty good. Team defense was okay. Very talented Rink team. So 5 goals from that side, and I thought their goalkeeper was very strong in goal. I don't recollect his name at this point, but he played a very solid game in goal. Everything he probably made 30 saves and. Rebound control was great and all those kind of things. So the goalies are both good, better chances for their guys, and but a decent game against the best competition we played so far on that U17 team. Kind of set us up for better games on the weekend. So helped us out a little bit.
And yeah, from what I've heard and what I've seen, it was a 9-1 win and then a convincing win on the Sunday as well. But yeah, bouncing back in big fashion. This team is going to have other players stepping up this season now that, of course, the Carrolls and the Hearsts won't be on the team, but for this group, seeing those players step up so early on is promising for sure.
Well, certainly the players stepped up. I got to say this: the coaching staff has got to have to figure out a whole new world without Carson and Brent Hurst. Um, they've got to think about this game completely differently than last year, and they have. And there's the benefit that Pilot Mount has in this case with Rick McConnell and Danny Carls. they're veteran guys that know how to mold the team different from one year to the next. So good on the organization to have these two guys in the right place, and they've selected good players, a lot of skill. Not quite as big a team as last year, a lot of skill, and of course it's going to be different. So maybe some more goals from different people, and some different kind of defense. Not quite as offensive on the defensive team. That's okay. Goalies don't mind a defenseman being back checking rather than up the ice trying to score. So goalies will be happy with that.
Yeah, and Jack Perrier, Brody Witink had huge weekends. From what Luke was saying, he told me he had 2 goals as well. But yeah, you got the Jack Adams, the Jack Perry's on this team still. Gavin Noseworthy, a huge addition to this year's team that was so
Yep.
good on last year's U15 squad. And yeah, they ended off this past weekend with a 5-2 win. I guess how huge is that to having an addition like a Gavin and yeah, the newer players coming into this year's U17 team that did so well last year.
Well, it's great. I mean, it certainly augments what we've already got there, and you got to replace guys, right? Both Hurst and Carl's going. You got to replace some kind of player with some kind of talent. Otherwise, you're they're not going to score as many goals or be as good defensively. Gavin knows where he's a good hard nosed player. He's growing. He's a talented guy from an offensive standpoint. He'll just get better, get with his line mates, etc. And so he is a welcome addition already, and he's even going to get better as time goes on here.
This team in action, as mentioned earlier in the show, against Shawnigan Lake School, St. George's School, and Star Hockey Academy in Abbotsford, BC, at the Summit Center for all 3 games. This weekend coming up, we'll end off with the U18 male group, Gordy, as I pull up their schedule here right beside me. They were in action in Whitewood, Saskatchewan to take on Indigenous Sports Academy for themselves this past week. And how'd things go for the U18 male Buffs?
Won one, lost one, and uh, good game. The first game it was a 5-4 OT win, and then we took a 4-0 loss. So that wasn't as good a game. I'm not sure why there was a big difference in the score. The first game was the Saturday afternoon game was a weird. I wrote down weird and unusual at the end of the first period because it was weird and unusual. There was the flow of the game wasn't there. Things just were not normal, and I don't know why. It was a full moon or whatever we had going on there. But at the end of the day, it was a different game, and yet we came back and tied the game and won the game in OT. The next day we didn't play as well. The other team had we got a good team, and if we don't play hard and go hard every game, we're not going to win many. So and we're going to struggle a little bit offensively yet with this group. We're better defensively, I think, than we were. Much better defensively than we were last year, and hopefully we can turn on some scoring a bit later. They're still working the lines out on that team. I know that for sure. Same with the U17s. It's only the first couple games, so there's no panic here to be better or different. It's just getting used to one another, and that's going to take another couple of weeks probably.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This is the time of the year where you want to see, the bad habits if there are any, so you can correct them early. And I know for this group, there's big expectations from the coaching staff, from the players from who I've talked to, but you know, you're not always going to succeed. There's going to be, little failures along the way, like this past game. Not calling it a failure, but a 4-0 loss, right? How I guess much of a blessing is it maybe to get this type of stuff out of the way early on to focus on building the good habits like more consistency and trying to find a bit more offense, things like that.
Yeah, it's great to get it done. Well, that's why you have preseason. These are teaching times for the coaches because during the season it's not as easy, and of course kids are in school and doing all the other things that they do. So right now it's hey, you won last night and you're on a big high, and then you come down tomorrow and you don't show up for whatever reason, or the other team shows up better, and or you don't get any breaks, and you got to learn to deal with that. You got to learn to deal with that as a group. Okay, now every kid's gone through these for 5 or 10 years already. on their own teams prior, but now they're on this team and they got to figure out how this team has to mesh together. And good on them to do the meshing the day before. They didn't mesh in the next game, or the other team had a better goalie or whatever it was, and we didn't win. But winning isn't everything, of course. It's the teaching points and getting those good habits, as you mentioned. That's what's important now, and we'll just keep building on that. As we go along with all of our teams. It's not just this particular group, but certainly all four of our teams.
One last thing about this U18 group. You mentioned their defense. It looks a lot better so far this year from what you've seen. Definitely, if there's any, positive to take away, I feel like it's that, because this has been a team in the past few seasons since its existence that it sure struggled in that end of things.
Well, defense, and for the folks out there who are goalie people, and I'm, of course, a goalie guy. So, I've always said this, the hardest position in hockey to me is defense. You've got to be a special guy to be able to play defense. Hey, you got to be able to skate backwards, and be competent at that, be able to pass the puck up the ice, head on a swivel, be at that end, be at this end, getting checked, bang, hit guys, be hit, all of that stuff going on. The most important guy in the team is the goalie. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. If you have good goaltending, you got a chance. If you have bad goaltending, you don't have a chance. That's all there is to it. The first 2 years this team was in existence, it was hard to find good defensemen because there are just not as many good defensemen as there are competent to really good forwards.
Right.
And because everybody likes to score, everybody wants to be a forward guy, and so all the glory that goes along with that. And so it's kind of a that in between position, and so but we've improved that a lot. And of course, with Anthony Florentino as our head coach, and Tyler Dixon coming in with his skills development part of his business. Anthony being an all-star defenseman, we've got a chance here to have a really top-notch defensive team with great defensive players, defenseman players. So looking forward to this team developing on the defensive side a lot, and we got to score some goals too. But that comes with some other stuff.
Yeah, and I love the hype around this team. I'll say it again this season. I love how much they believe in themselves, and yeah, the old high schooler in me hoping that they take care of business against the St. Paul's Crusaders coming up on October 5th. They'll be playing against the Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg team next on October 2nd. Before that, at the Rink Training Center in Winnipeg. But Gordy, it's always fun to have you on. We went longer today because there's so much to talk about around the academy. There's going to be a lot to talk about again next week. Until then, you take care.
Thanks for having me again, Graham. Thank you.
Gordy Tomlinson joining this edition of his favorite podcast, your favorite podcast, and even, well, my favorite podcast for this Wednesday. I don't know, we got four of them. Hard to choose which one's my favorite specifically, but yeah, always great talking with Gordy. And for this Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy programs, that is, a lot of optimism. You love to hear it. You love to see it. And as the CSSHL regular season gets going very soon here, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what type of seasons these teams will truly have. They've all shown signs of extreme positives to start off this season as well. And yeah, you just gotta love the absolute positive vibes around this academy, from the U18 female squad, from the U18 male team, right? With their championship hopes. The U17s, talking to Luke Adam, and the optimism around this group, and really emphasizing that it's going to take more than one or two players to get this done. It takes a team, and he feels, and rightfully so, that this is a quality U17 team. And then we look at the U15s, right, highlighted by Cole Anderville, but he wasn't even the one making that much of an impact on the score sheet, but impact in the game in other ways. And the first weekend of action for this U15 group. Speaking of the U15s, they had a chance to go out and explore in their first weekend trip away from the academy, as they were just taking a look at it in Surrey, Manitoba, of course, for an annual preseason tournament, as they took on some AAA teams. As we talked about, fared pretty well this past weekend. Had some wins, some losses in there. But yeah, for this Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy U15 Prep Buffaloes squad, taking a look at when they will be in action next. Will be coming up this weekend, of course. And as me and Gordy talked about, they will be going up against Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg. And that game will be played at the Rink Training Center, 6 p.m. this Friday night. Be sure to catch it on Flow Sports, or Flow Hockey, as I should say. And also check it out in the Winnipeg area if you are able to make it down there to the Rink Training Center. But as for the other teams in the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, all teams are going to be in action coming up, except for the U18 male Buffaloes squad, as they'll be taking on Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg on October 2nd at the Rink Training Center. So a week away from now. But as for the other teams in the academy, they'll be starting off their regular season, I believe, this week coming up, 2 days from now on Friday. As mentioned, the U15s are going to be in the Rink Training Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba, to take on RHA Winnipeg. The U17 male Buffaloes going to Abbotsford, BC, to take on Shawnigan Lake School at the Summit Center. And for the U18 female Buffaloes, of course, taking on Okanagan Hockey Academy Black, as mentioned earlier in this episode, at the Okanagan Hockey Training Center in Penticton, BC. For more information on everything to do with the Buffaloes' schedule, to see their rosters, and all things else Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, be sure to check out their website, pilotmountainhockeyacademy.com. That's going to do it for this episode, folks. We're going to hit one last transition, and I'll be back for some final words on Episode 3, Season 2 of the Buffaloes podcast. Well, you made it to the end of another edition of the Buffaloes podcast, the official Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast here on G Show Productions, presented by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, as well as Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Thank you to those four sponsors for continuing to support us here on the network. Thank you to Luke Adam and Gordy Tummelson for coming on this edition of the show and being this week's guests. And thank you to you, the viewer, for tuning in to another edition of the Buffaloes podcast. If you enjoyed this one and want to see more, we post every Wednesday at 8 a.m. is when these episodes come out. So you can also watch them later. You can watch them anytime you want, but if you want to watch them live, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss when this podcast comes out, as well as all of our other content. For the first time this year, we're going to be live streaming the hockey game in this 2024-2025 season. G-Show Productions will be live on location tomorrow night at St. Vital Centennial Arena to broadcast the season opener and the St. Vital Junior Victoria's home opener against the Fort Garry Twins. We're going to have a podcast live from the arena tomorrow at about 5:30 is when it's going to start. We're going to have some wonderful guests on that edition of the show. Should be a lot of fun. So yeah, we're changing our schedule a bit around in terms of our other content, but this episode or this podcast and this the time of the episodes that it comes out at will remain the same. 8 a.m. next week. Going to be a lot of fun. Hoping to have Cole Landerville on the show. Aiden and Tate, the two goaltenders from the U18 program. Tried getting them on, but Pilotman's working their players too hard, maybe, saying they were exhausted. No, I kid. Great to know that Pilotman's keeping their players busy and stuff. But yeah, hoping to have Aiden and Tate on next week, as well as Cole and any other players. Details for next week's episode will come out before it airs next week on our website and on our social media pages. But until then, folks, I've been your host, Graham, the G Show Forsyth, giving you the salute peacing out and waving so long on this Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your week, a wonderful and safe week, and enjoy the great hockey coming your way, Buffaloes Nation. And with that, we'll let Tyson Unruh, Juno Award winner, take us away with his March of the Buffaloes theme.